everyone. We are here live with Kaitlin Marie Weber. She is our vintage styling expert. Kaitlin, say hi to everyone out on the Ruby Lane live cam.
Hi, everybody.
It is Vintage Fashion Week here on Ruby Lane, and it is so exciting, and it's wonderful to be here with an expert. Kaitlin, you started using vintage fashion a couple years ago. Can you tell us about when you started and what drew you to the vintage fashion lifestyle?
I would say I really started in high school. I've always, shopped at thrift stores with my family. Just always admired older pieces. Started wearing 80s pieces in high school, and then I got a hold of a book called The Woman We Want to Look Like, 1970s book, and inside was like Jean Harlow and Twiggy, 1960s model, Eddie Sedgwick. And I just was obsessed with this picture of Twiggy, and I would just, try to do that 1960s makeup, and sure enough, I did the pixie cut like her as well. So I'd say it started about then.
Speaking of hair and makeup, you absolutely have the look. It is so fantastic. We've been watching you and your style for a long time. What do you actually do for a living?
I work here at Eron Johnson Antiques, and I'm also pursuing a bachelor's in art history right now. I plan to be a researcher, cataloger for auction companies, possibly museums, and also continue with my passion with vintage
fashion. It's so fantastic. Every time I come in here, you are absolutely dressed to the nines. You look amazing, and you make it look effortless, which is why we're here today to get some of your tips on how people like us can get started in the vintage fashion world. So if you were talking to somebody who loves vintage fashion, but they've never tried it and they would like a good place to start, what's a way to get started?
I'd say accessorize first. Getting yourself a really good couple pieces of jewelry or some really unique scarves is very helpful. Celluloid is a really great place to start. It's very different looking, really awesome colors. You really don't see anything that's modern that's like celluloid jewelry. For example, I have this strawberry piece that I wear all the time, and I probably don't get as many compliments on anything I own as much as this piece. And the cool thing about it is I bought it at an estate sale, and over the years I shop on Etsy or Ruby Lane and find just charms to put on there. So you can buy a turtle shell one, you could buy a black one, like a chain, a pink one, a turquoise one, there's all different colors, and just mix and match different celluloid charms. So cool. Yeah.
I'm looking at your dress right now, and it is so interesting. Tell us a little bit about what you have on for our shoot today.
This is a Mexican painted skirt. I haven't seen too many of them, but there are quite a many of them out there. It probably would have been hand painted. There's a cool little tag inside that's all in Spanish and shows a cute little Mexican girl with this large skirt. This is also a really good thing to start with for a vintage look, a good full circle skirt. And they make them modern, you can get them vintage, but they always have, the vintage ones have really amazing patterns. And that's something that's indicative of the 40s and 50s, is they're just amazing, beautifully illustrated and composed patterns. And the coolest thing about 50s circle skirts too is it's reflective of the post-World War II era, when you didn't have to conserve as much or ration as much, so people went crazy with dyes and fabrics and the use of lots of fabrics. So that's why there is so much for a circle skirt.
And you have a crinoline underneath here, and for those tuning in, a crinoline, tell us a little bit about what a crinoline is.
A crinoline kind of beefs up and fluffs out the skirt, but that's another thing too. If you're just starting out, maybe you don't want to wear a crinoline because you're still kind of shy about looking different or standing out or being stared at too much. So this will lay a little bit flatter, but a crinoline definitely helps bring out the amazing patterns.
It is absolutely amazing. If you guys are tuning in, we are here live with vintage fashion expert Kaitlin Marie Weber. She is giving us some styling tips on how to live this lifestyle. Now, Kaitlin, you live this lifestyle. So you are a college student, you work every day, and every day you dress like this and you look so incredible. What do you say to people that say, are you going to a Halloween party, or what's your deal?
You know, and you really get that very rarely, and when you do, you know, you just kind of throw it
Right.
back at them.
Most people probably really appreciate it.
I mean, you can see, usually if you can see like someone's smile brighten up, or an older person, they're like, oh my gosh, I used to wear that, and it's really meaningful to them. And even in an office dressing vintage, like secretary style, that is so absolutely totally classy and cute that you really don't look that strange.
Do you love the resurgence of shows like Mad Men, where it glamorizes the wonderful vintage look?
Absolutely. It really gets people motivated into trying things that they wouldn't necessarily try. You know, it may look weird on the hanger to them, or they may not think that it would ever fit them, but then they try it on and it makes their figure look absolutely beautiful, and they see how well the fabric looks in light and with their skin, and then they can accessorize, and it's really amazing to see someone blossom like that.
I love it. To see someone blossom, that is the perfect way to put it. Kaitlin, a couple of your favorite pieces we are seeing behind you right here. Let's take a look at some of them.
Alrighty. So I'd say the first one that is probably my personal favorite, because I'm a freak for old 30s, 40s patterns, is this one right here. It's a little bit worse for wear, but because the pattern is so abstracted and original and vibrant against this rayon crepe, it's one of my favorite pieces. I definitely saw it from across the room and bought it immediately.
I love it. How do you care for something like that?
Rayon crepe is very difficult. I'm still learning, definitely. I have been wearing vintage for a long time, but the really older stuff, the 30s, 40s, and 50s, just really starting to get used to the care of it. But rayon crepe should usually be dry cleaned. And it's really unfortunate when you get pieces that are a fabric that need to be dry cleaned and they have some pretty serious stains. And that's something that you can get creative with. So, for example, this piece has some pretty crazy stains. Unfortunately, and you will come across that a lot at estate sales. So what I'm probably going to do is shorten it a little bit, and also take a little bit of fabric paint and kind of just paint the areas that really, really need it.
Oh, well, that's a great idea for restoration. Fabric paint.
It's definitely better than throwing it away or tearing it apart too much. So
Absolutely. So if you saw something like this, or any of these pieces at, say, an estate sale or garage sale, or even on Ruby Lane, and you were looking at them and it says it's a size 16, or it's a size 8, or it's a size 24, what is your tip for that? Because it's a little bit different nowadays.
Definitely know your measurements. When you're shopping online, or if you're shopping in the store or in an estate sale where you may not necessarily be able to try anything on, it's good to bring a waist measure, like a sewing kit, like, forget the name of it, but you know, just know if you're a 26-inch waist or a 31-inch waist, and then lay the garment down and measure, and you can see if it'll fit or not. And it's super helpful online too, because you can learn your inseam and your bust, and then you can appropriately buy stuff on Ruby Lane or Etsy.
Yeah, and you can make it fit and make it work. This skirt is amazing.
This is a 1950s full skirt, and this one is cool. I'm pretty sure someone made this one, and inside is a built-in crinoline.
Look at that.
And the coolest thing is they have elements from the outside fabric just as the lining.
So this attention to detail is an earmark of something that's very well made.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is just an exceptional piece, and a really good thing to identify 1950s and before are the zippers and the fastening.
Let's take a look at that. So if you guys are tuning in, you can ask Kaitlin live questions. We are here. She is here to answer your questions on anything vintage, fashion, styling. Right now we are taking a look at a zipper.
So this zipper, if it's usually if it's 50s, 60s and before, more like between 40s to 60s, it's going to be a metal zipper. 70s is nylon usually. So these metal zippers, if you see them, snatch it up, because it's probably a pretty good old piece.
I love it. That is a great telltale sign for when we're out shopping and we're trying to identify good, authentic vintage pieces. So look at the zipper, look at the stitching, look at to see if it has a crinoline built in.
Absolutely. Another really great piece for vintage is a wiggle skirt or a wiggle dress or a skirt, but it usually really accentuates your hips. It's usually fitted at the waist. It's just beautiful. This one I call my sexy Wednesday Adam dress. It's very
totally
very tight,
Wednesday Addams.
but it's very cute. And with this kind of shape, you can also wear crazier hats with it, like kind of like 30s, 40s, like really high form hats, and it looks really, really beautiful
To help balance it out. Just fabulous. Now, what kind of fabric is this piece right here?
This is most likely a rayon. It's a very stretchy rayon. I've only seen this kind of fabric once before as well, but this piece is 1930s, and this is my personal favorite era. This one's kind of exceptional in the fact that it has weights to hold down the fabric right here, and you can see that someone like sewed the back of those. It's so cool. And then there's this open back with it.
We have a little overhead lighting, so I'm going to move the camera a little bit so we can see it better. That is perfect. So those weights, is that something that you see a lot in the 1930s?
I've actually never seen it before. They may have. It's kind of getting harder to find 30s stuff, but they definitely may have done that. Probably more in the 1910s, I would say, with tassels and stuff like that on the sleeves. But speaking of fastening before, you can always tell it's a 30s piece with snaps.
Okay.
And it'll usually be on the side of the garment.
Okay. With snaps. So do people make reproduction pieces with vintage snaps?
I've never seen it. It's possible. One really great reproduction is Trashy Diva. That's out of New Orleans, I believe. I have a dress that's like a silk chiffon from them, and it's a 30s reproduction. It's just gorgeous. And also Betsy Johnson. She does 30s to 50s very, very, very well with a really, really great eye for fabrics and prints.
Yeah, the fabrics and the prints are basically what it's all about. This is a fabulous, is this velvet? It looks like velvet and silk.
It's a silk velvet, and I believe this is satin, and it's got kind of mother of pearl buttons, but this is a really cute 1960s piece. And you can wear it with a pair of go-go boots or with some Mary Janes, and then tease your hair up to heaven and do the heavy makeup, and it's very, very fun. I like to wear this one around the holidays for sure.
So this is a dress, yeah, if you wore it around the holidays, maybe with some nylons or nylons. Did people wear a lot of nylons in the 30s?
They really started to in the 20s, but yeah, a lot of vintage truists will actually get dead stock pieces of nylon and the silk pantyhoses, and they'll still wear it with garter belts, and they're usually quite well made. It's like a high shine sometimes, and they had some really cool fishnets back then too. One that comes to mind is a Cuban toe fishnet, and that's usually kind of a rust color. And that's a really interesting one.
I love it. So Kaitlin, I brought this dress. I purchased this on Ruby Lane. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but I absolutely loved the color. Can you tell me a little bit about it? I'm not sure exactly how old it is, but the seller thought it was probably 1930s.
She's absolutely right. Again, as you can see, the snaps on the side.
So we're going to get in so you guys can see the snaps on the side. That's how you can tell a 30s piece right there.
And also this bust line, that's typical of even their negligees and their slips. This has got the bias going on the bottom. Yeah, this one's absolutely gorgeous. And because of its age, it's really hard to find them complete with a jacket or a belt. When you do find them, it's really, really cool. There's this amazing lace pleating going on as well. Yeah, this is just generally a great piece. And it's also taking into account the fact that the lace is in such good condition. But that's the interesting thing too, is even if you're not very good at sewing, lace is pretty easy to repair. It's the more intricate it is, at least, especially this one. There's lots of tutorials online of how to back a tear, or how to kind of like you know, mimic what's going
Kind
on
of,
with the lace.
yeah. So one of the questions I had on styling a piece like this, it's very sheer. I obviously couldn't wear it with just like that and my undergarments. So what would I wear underneath that?
Well, also one thing I do collect a lot of, and I don't really get a chance to wear too much, is 1930s, 40s undergarments, like nightgowns and tap shorts. And so you could wear something like that underneath. If you wanted to make it kind of a little bit more modern, you could wear a real long black slip, and that would kind of, you know, be this stark contrast.
Kind of a juxtaposition of colors and textures.
Definitely. And that's something that's also really indicative of the grunge period. They wore a lot of, you know, 40s, 50s. Courtney Love did a lot of that. 60s pieces, and you know, you can make it work like that, kind of do stark, you know, edgy contrasts with these really soft, beautiful pieces. I think it's a great look.
I think it's a great look too. If you guys are tuning in, we are here live with Kaitlin Marie Weber. She is our vintage styling expert. So exciting to be here. She is showing us some of her favorite pieces and also teaching us some of her top tips for using and integrating the vintage lifestyle into your everyday, which is what we're all about here on Ruby Lane.
Absolutely.
Kaitlin, tell us about this piece right here.
This is great. I got this as a gift from a very dear friend of mine. I was admiring it for such a long time that she just got it for me for my birthday one year. But this is a celluloid belt buckle. Oh, actually, excuse me, lucite belt buckle. And it yellows over time, but it still looks really, really, really nice. And it's got that color field going on with the top and the bottom, and it's very flattering on, you know, the bust and the waist. Yeah, this piece is pretty great. And again, this is, some of these fabrics you really don't know how they're gonna wash. It's good to maybe test a section of it, and I would say with this one it should probably be dry cleaned, because it could be some type of rayon or some kind of like early synthetic material.
Yeah, most of the clothes I would think you probably do have to dry clean or at least be super careful with them.
Absolutely.
This piece is super fun. It looks like a two-piece.
It is. It's a dress and a jacket. I found this one recently at a thrift store, and it doesn't have any snags. It's in great condition. It looks like it was made in someone's home.
Let's look at the lining there. So how old do you think this piece is?
This is definitely a 50s piece. It's unique because usually the zippers are on the back or the sides, but this one is pretty snug up in the side. Oop.
So again, with the zippers, the metal zippers they did from
about the 40s to the 60s.
Okay.
It just became cheaper to make nylon ones in the 70s. But zippers had been around for a lot longer. They were just quite expensive. So you might come across some 30s pieces that have zippers, but it's pretty rare. And that's another thing too, if you're at an estate sale, buying sewing supplies that are period appropriate. So if you find metal zippers, you know, in a bin, you can always get that if you plan to collect more and more vintage, because you most likely will have to repair some things over time. But this piece is just in excellent condition.
And do you wear something like this to work?
I don't. I wear this for more of a formal kind of event, just because of the high shine and quality of the fabric, but yeah. And it definitely really sculpts your figure. So you wouldn't be as comfortable in like all day kind of wear.
Right. Well, speaking of all day kind of wear, that was one of the things I really wanted to touch on with you is what are some of your everyday staples, throw on clothes, if you will, to get you out of the house, but still keep up the look?
I would say some really good tops, like crop tops, halters, tube tops, and all of those can be modern pieces, but incorporating some kind of vintage element, like this large necklace I have from the 30s.
Which is so fun. We've been eyeing this necklace. It looks like a waterfall necklace or maybe a chandelier type.
Something like that, yeah. I forget the name of it, but it's definitely brass, and brass is always really fun. It looks great with most colors, especially black.
Especially black.
I definitely stress the scarves. This is one of my favorite pieces. There are a lot of these tourist scarves, and this one would probably be a 1940s example. But you can just roll them up, put them around your neck, in your hair. Something like this size would be great for kind of doing a turban look. And that looks excellent if you get big old earrings, some bright lipstick, and then just a black ensemble, and it looks really, really, really good.
So you can make the vintage look with just a couple fun accessories, and then you're kind of good to go. You don't have to, for the everyday, you don't have to go too crazy. We are looking at some, but we like going crazy. We're looking at some of these wonderful accessories right here. First accessory I want to talk about is your hat.
Oh, yes. So I think any vintage look, a good staple is a good saucer. So a saucer is usually pretty shallow at the top, like for the head, and you can either put like an elastic strap or use an actual hat pin to keep it in. And there's all kinds of different hat pins.
So I'm not a vintage fashion expert, and if I was going to put that on, I would have put it on straight on top of my head, and I wouldn't have been wearing it correctly.
It's fun to tilt it. It kind of gives you this halo look that's very indicative of the 30s through the 50s, just glamour.
Total glamour. Would you mind turning around so we can show everyone? Could you do us a favor and take out that hat pin and put the hat back on so we can see how to wear a hat pin?
So just like that. Put it right on the crown, and then you kind of just
Feel the pin.
lace it through. And there you go.
It's perfect. When we were preparing for the shoot, we were both outside and there was a gust of wind and your hat stayed on.
It did. It almost fell off, but hat pins are pretty great. They keep it on pretty well. And you can wear more than one if you really need to keep it secure.
And hat pins are a cool thing to collect.
Absolutely. There's all kinds of different shapes and sizes. I've seen some from the 20s that are like filigree open work with like leaves, and that would be in brass too. And I've seen Art Nouveau ones where it's like this kind of like organic shape going on, like that's on this couch with like an opal put in the middle. It's absolutely incredible. There's some great ones out there.
I love it. So for vintage styling, you brought a couple hats for us. Kaitlin, will you please try on these hats for us so we can know how to wear them?
So earlier when I was talking about a wiggle dress, this is a great hat that you can wear with either a suit with a wiggle skirt or a wiggle dress, because it kind of brings the eye and the form up, and then the wiggle skirt will go down, and it looks pretty great with the crazier hat.
It does. Turn your head to the side so we can see what that looks like. Now, would you use a hat pin for that, or is it pretty snug?
You can, but it's kind of more of a cloche type of style, so it'll stay on pretty well. But something like this would not stay on as well. You can just feel it. You know, if it feels like it might slide off a little bit, a hat pin's a good idea.
I absolutely love it. What is one of the things or a couple of the things that you would not leave the house without having on?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite, like, prized possession, it's so little, but I found these a while ago. They're 1930s,
Yes.
late 30s glasses, and they're actual glass, so they're very reflective. And they just look slick. They're awesome.
We used one of the photos of you in these glasses in our promo for today's shoot.
Absolutely.
Those are so cool. And you said they were 1930s? Those got to be pretty hard to find.
They are. They're very hard to find. And this type of plastic, you can tell it's so delicate, but I believe that could be celluloid as well.
So definitely a great set of glasses. I usually see you wearing hats, the whole look.
Definitely.
We have a couple pieces down here of accessories.
Absolutely. This is an 1880. Now, this could be great with just a simple black dress, maybe some silver shoes or some silver jewelry, but it's just absolutely like amazing 1960s reminiscent boho look. I mean, they were wearing a lot of Victorian stuff during the 60s.
Now, are you a mixer? Do you mix 30s with 60s with 40s, or do you kind of keep it all?
Absolutely.
You do?
If I think the shape and the color is there, I'll wear anything with anything. Yeah, I especially like to do 80s and 30s because it's just such a stark difference. It's kind of tough to pull off, but it's fun.
But you can do it. What is your opinion of pattern mixing?
I've seen people do it, and now this is when it gets into high fashion, in my opinion, but I've seen people wear a crazy 1960s dress with socks that have cities printed on them, and then like sandals. So it sounds totally out there, but if you can make it work, like just grabbing small elements of color from each piece, it does work, and it is just so fun to wear them. It's very entertaining.
It is so fun and it is so entertaining. If you guys are tuning in, we are here live with Kaitlin Marie Weber. She's giving us styling tips. Share our video if you love all of the vintage, everything that you're seeing. Of course, comment live if you have some questions. Oh, this hat I definitely saw earlier, and I would love to see what it looks like on. What is a hat like this even called?
I used to know, but I don't know anymore. I do know it's probably a 40s hat. Early 40s, and they did some quite sculptural types of hats in the 30s and 40s. But this guy,
oh, look at that,
could only really go with a suit or a wiggle skirt. I mean, if you could find a way to incorporate it any other way, that'd be great, but I haven't. It's just an amazing piece of history, though.
It is an amazing piece of history, and that's one of the things I love that you're touching on, is that the clothes that we're looking at are reflective of the time period, and we can learn so much about other people's lives and how they lived.
Absolutely. Another really interesting thing to bring up is this piece that is for sale from EJA. It's probably, and I wasn't even aware until I got here how early celluloid jewelry had started, but this is a 1890 piece. And back then they used a lot of celluloid for reproductions of ivory, and it was called French ivory. And this is supposed to mimic tortoiseshell.
Right.
But you can see how they kept that tradition of a big chain going on for a while. And then you have this absolutely beautiful, either molded or carved cameo, but inside is velvet. And you could either put like a photograph in there or some kind of relic. A lot of people back then would put hair in there, various mourning pieces.
Right.
So that's something really cool. You could even do something cool, like put a butterfly wing in there.
You totally could.
It could be like a talisman, but it's just one of the greatest pieces I've ever seen of celluloid jewelry.
We have a couple people writing in. Somebody just asked, when you dry clean your clothes, do you make special instructions for the dry cleaner?
Yes, you typically have to warn them if there is any kind of ripping going on. Just let them know about your concerns with the piece, and you know, it's good to really shop around for a good dry cleaner. Just someone that's willing to listen and really be careful with your pieces, and also maybe even experiment for things like rayon crepe, like something that's stained like that. So definitely give some instructions.
Give some instructions. I like that. Cindy just wrote in and said, how do you care for your hats? I bought a box of vintage hats and they are dusty and likely from a smoker's home and they smell musty. What can I do?
That's tough. Smoke is one of the hardest things to get out of purses and hats, because a lot of it can't be washed. This is usually due to the fact that it's different types of material on each other. So one might shrink, one might not, and then it might just ruin the whole thing. So it's good to maybe try to give it a spot clean if you can. Let's see. With hats, a lot of the time a good lint rolling is all you can really do. You can get hats dry cleaned, but again, you run the risk of ruining it. But another thing people do is just really let things air out for a while.
Right.
Hang it up somehow outside to let it air out. But if you can find a way to wash it or dry clean it, that's the best bet you have.
Somebody just commented and said, coffee grounds in a bag. Have you ever heard of that trick?
No, I haven't. For cleaning?
Yeah, for getting the smoke smell out of a hat.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It would be better to smell like coffee than smoke, that's for sure.
Yeah, for
If you guys have any more questions for Kaitlin, please write in. We are here live with our fashion expert for Fashion Week on Ruby Lane. It's so exciting. So we're looking at a couple more accessories here. I see this bolo. Now, Kaitlin, do you wear a bolo?
Every once in a while, I kind of, and with each look I do, it's usually in reference to something I've seen, either a photo or a film or something, and it's just this like incorporation of an old or new look kind of mashed together. So when I wear a bolo, I think of Ducky from Pretty in Pink.
Love it.
So even though this is more like casino kind of crazy Western piece, it's this beautiful example of Native American jewelry.
Right.
The maker's name is Paul Noel, and this is some of the truest, most beautiful pieces of turquoise I've ever seen. And I believe these are bear claws. They could be eagle or bear. I'm not
I think they are bear, yeah. It's a great piece, especially for here in Colorado. Now, if I was going to put together an outfit, one of the things I do is I look on Pinterest. What are some of the ways that you think of putting things together? Do you ever see a painting here in this amazing antique store and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to recreate that look?
Sometimes it's funny you ask, I collect old yearbooks to see how people
Old
dress.
yearbooks, that is so perfect.
Yeah, I like to see what the teenagers were wearing in the 30s or the 1910s, and it always gives me new ideas. Another thing, the Instagram vintage community is excellent, and my favorite person on there is Butchwax Vintage, and she has a white pixie cut, and she used to be a burlesque dancer, and she just pulls things together so well. She is so inspiring.
I love it. Jessie just wrote in and said, do you recommend hand washing cotton dresses or dry cleaning? Also, is there a detergent you recommend for hand washing?
So it depends. Like, for example, this doesn't have very much metallic paint, but this one does, and these are both the type of cotton. So I would be afraid to hand wash this. I'd probably dry clean this because of the paint. But something like this, you can use OxyClean, especially if it's cotton, and OxyClean will get most of the stains out. But only use small amounts of it, and definitely test it out first. A lot of people don't know this, but you can also get stains out of silk and clean silk yourself, and also cashmere. And there's lots of tutorials on that as well. And on Etsy, there is a pretty large blog community of cleaning different fabrics. So if you're willing to take the time to research something very specific, you can usually find an answer on how to clean it.
Laura just wrote in and said, Butchwax Vintage is outstanding.
Definitely.
And wrote it just like that.
She's my
one of
favorite.
Speaking of favorites, who are a couple of your vintage style icons that maybe are not here anymore?
One that is alive is Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees. I definitely still like to mix this goth style with the 50s, but kind of like move away from the Misfits kind of thing, and more towards like the definite like 80s kind of Chains, Sisters of Mercy kind of thing. So I think that looks really good. Cyndi Lauper, she was a great example of how to bring 50s into a modern sense. Also Jean Harlow, of course, Betty Davis, especially oddly Betty Davis in All About, what is that movie called? Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Yes.
She's so funny in that. But I would also say a lot of silent film. I really look at their makeup and their style as well.
I love what you said about the vintage yearbook, though. I never would have thought about that. And what a way to rescue, because people just, yearbooks get thrown away, and so you're rescuing them.
Definitely. Yeah, and I picked one up from here, and I think it was like 1935, and they were wearing these types of necklaces, and the hairstyles were just out of this world. They were so cool.
We are obsessed with your hair. We watch your Instagram, and we see that you do some of those old, wonderful finger curls. Do you have any friends that we might be able to do a video with in the future showing us how to do that?
Absolutely. Much like Butchwax, my really good friend Emily, she has very, very short hair, so she is able to accomplish the finger waves, which are quite difficult. I've only ever been able to get the front of my hair, but she's able to get her whole head, and that's quite a difficult thing. I hear that if you want to graduate beauty school, a lot of people have to do finger waves as one of their final assessments.
I love it. So this piece we're looking at over here, it's absolutely gorgeous, and it looks like the kind of outfit you would answer the door in if your husband disappeared of mysterious circumstances. It is just absolutely fabulous.
Definitely.
Tell us about this wonderful outfit.
So this piece is a 1930s formal wear. It's the only one I've ever found with a label in it. And let me see if I can just take a peek at the label. It says that it is either for an opera company or meant for going to the opera. And the only time I've ever really worn this piece was going to the opera. And it was very, very, very fun. But it is a silk velvet. It has the side attachments as well, or snaps. It's got some beautiful embellishment going through. And you rarely see a rust silk velvet. And same with yellow. Those are both quite rare colors. So this is called Lucia Opera Velvets, and here is a tag on this one.
Look at that. The wonderful thing about this outfit too is that you don't have to wear jewelry. It's built in right there. You've got your belt, you've got your embellishments around the neckline. That is very interesting. So this was obviously for somebody either very wealthy or someone very important, because you said most of the clothes around this time period were probably handmade.
It's hard to say. It could have been a kind of a cheaper line, or it could have been more expensive. Judging by how well it's put up over the years with the stitching, there's really no holes going on, which is quite common with older pieces. You're probably right. It was probably more of an expensive piece. And this is even rare for the 50s or 60s, very little to no fraying in the embellishment. So it was really well made.
Just fabulous. So, Kaitlin, if I was going to start out and do my first vintage outfit, or just kind of get my feet wet, but I didn't have a lot of money, let's say I had $50, what would a good place be to start? Should I buy a top? Do I buy an accessory?
I would always go for a bottom and an accessory. I would say a scarf, a neck scarf, or a bib necklace, or high-waisted kind of like cigarette pants, or a high-waisted skirt, and that will always come across as vintage. The higher the waist, the better.
Yes, absolutely. The higher the waist, the better. One of the things we touched on earlier was repurposing. So you took did I hear you say tablecloth and made a dress out of it?
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but looking at 1910 shirts and dresses, you can definitely tell that a lot of the embroidery and open work were also employed for tablecloths. So if you wanted to take a 1910s pattern, or even older, you could make a nice white cotton dress or shirt with a high neck, and that could be really cool. So it's really good to think about using fabrics in creative ways to kind of achieve your look.
I love it. So if somebody is tuning in right now and they're in a small town, or they didn't know that this was a thing, how does somebody get started? I know that's a reaching question, but if you were going to get started, are there certain groups that are fun to visit online, on Facebook, meetups? When you first started, what was that defining moment where you said, you know what, this is something I'm interested in?
The one thing about fashion, any fashion, is to always be true to what you like. And if you look at something and say, hey, that looks really interesting, or that's really beautiful, then you should buy it and you should wear it. You should find a way to wear it. And I find that revolving something around one piece will make you think in different ways than you had before. So that's a great way to start. And just be adamant about it. Go thrifting, go to estate sales, and you'll probably meet people out there too. Also, there's resources like Ruby Lane, which have very, 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 very high quality pieces. And
yeah, we're constantly getting new things every single day on Ruby Lane, which is so exciting. We just got notification that this video is our most commented on live video yet. So that is very, very exciting. Kaitlin, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you you do a lot of vintage modeling, you've done all kinds of wonderful things. What is one of the ways that they can get in touch with you?
My Facebook, Kaitlin Marie Weber, but mostly I would say Instagram, and my Instagram name is Frothy Stardog. And you can also find me under Kaitlin Marie Weber on Instagram.
I love it. So right before we hop off, again, Kaitlin, can you give us a couple of your top tips that you have found for when you are out vintage shopping, when you walk in the door?
I always go for the shoes first.
Okay.
Because those are the easiest. You can always tell right off the bat if it's going to be good or not. Most of the time, shoes are pretty hard to find, usually because vintage shoes run pretty small. You'll find a lot of amazing 40s, 50s shoes that are just like a size 5 or a 6.
Right, because we're going to pan down to your shoes real quick. And those are true vintage shoes.
Yeah, actually, these are modern reproductions.
Oh, they are.
This is just an example of the kind of things you can find out there.
You can, because
And
you have to buy modern reproduction shoes because
Yeah.
women, I guess, had smaller feet.
They sure did, and they were also more narrow too. But a good, solid vintage piece is called a peep toe, and that's what this is. And also, if it wraps around the ankle, that usually kind of spans the 30s and the 50s, but mostly the 50s. If you look at a lot of pinups, they're wearing peep toes with the bow ankle. I think actually Marilyn Monroe had one of the coolest pairs of shoes I've ever seen. They were much like this, but I believe they were lucite, so they were totally clear, like
Oh,
she
how
was
cool.
standing on ice cubes.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, I'm hoping that we can do some more videos with you in the future to learn some more styling tips. We just touched on a couple things today. Kaitlin, thank you so much again for your expertise. We are so grateful to be here, and you look absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.